so much. Okay, everybody. Who can tell me who this is? Brooke already gave it away. Who knows? Raise your hand. Should you yell it out for me? Snoop Dogg. And what is Snoop Dogg up to these days? Can we bring the house lights up a little bit, please? What is Snoop Dogg up to these days? What's he doing? Everything. Be specific. He's selling Corona. Yeah, he's got those great commercials that we see on TV. What else? What? He's hanging out with Martha Stewart. They had a TV show together. They wrote a cookbook together. What else? There's so much more. What? He what? He does youth football. Do you know that he has one of the biggest youth football programs in the country where he takes kids from the inner city and he helps them go to college and play in the NFL? Now, Juju Smith-Schuster from Kansas City went through Snoop Dogg's youth program. Amazing, right? Okay, what else?
Motivational speaker.
Yes, of course. He's very motivational. What else? What? He has his own food line. Anything else? Come on, how many Snoop Dogg's fans do we have in here? He has a whole album of children affirmation songs. Amazing. I mean, clearly we have some super fans in the room here, but so far nobody has mentioned the fact that recently Snoop Dogg opened up some real estate in the metaverse, and sold property next to his for $1.23 million. Can you believe that? Nobody mentioned the fact that he's an Olympic commentator. Did you know that he and Kevin Hart have a TV show together? Here they are at their official NBC desk. And they were so popular in the last Olympics that they're bringing them back for this next one. Amazing. Nobody mentioned that he's finally coming out with his own hot dog brand, much anticipated, Snoop Dogg's. Or the fact that he has an entire YouTube channel called Doggyland dedicated to nursery rhymes and kids shows. Amazing. Nobody mentioned that he has his own breakfast line, starting with the key product of Snoop Loops. Yeah? And just within the last month, he announced that he's starting his own coffee brand, coming to a store near you. You better believe it. Snoop wants to be your provider of caffeine beverages. Amazing, right? Okay, now, who can tell me who this is? Oh, you guys know. Some big Vanilla Ice fans in here. He is a picture you might recognize well. All right. What's this guy up to?
Renovates homes.
He renovates homes. Wow. And what else? Cool. A quiet draws over the crowd, right? Now, I love these two individuals because do you know that in the early 90s, 30 years ago, which is shocking, these two were going head to head. They both had big hits on their hands. In fact, at one point, Vanilla Ice was outselling Snoop Dogg. And yet today, Snoop Dogg, no matter what audience I'm talking to, is relevant to them. He's doing something that they're consuming and watching today. And Vanilla Ice is actually headlining the I Love the 90s reunion tour, right? So he's like, hey, remember 30 years ago? That was awesome. Let's relive that. And so I like to think of these two people as a continuum of innovation. I constantly ask myself, how innovative am I being on a scale of Vanilla Ice to Snoop Dogg? And that is my opening question to you. On a scale of 1 being Vanilla Ice and 5 being Snoop, can you put up a number of fingers for me to answer this question? How fast do you innovate at work? Your team at work, how fast? 1, 2, give me a Vanilla Ice to Snoop Dogg rating. Everybody put up a number of fingers. I see a lot of 3s, some 4s. Wow, very innovative people in this room. Some 2. This side of the room, all 2s. I don't know how you all divided that way. Okay. And why is the speed of innovation important? A lot of people talk about innovation, but few people mention speed. You know, it's not about how big of ideas we come up with, but like how fast we're doing it, especially today. Why is this speed important? Things are changing very quickly. What else? Help me complete this sentence. When the speed of innovation outside the building exceeds the speed of innovation inside our building, what happens? We become extinct. We become irrelevant. What else? I mean, those are pretty big ones. those are pretty heavy. Now, I keep using this word, innovation, innovator, and I'm curious how many people in the room feel like I'm talking about them. How many people at your core identify as an innovator? I would just love to see. It's okay if you don't. I just want to see our starting place, because that's my goal here today. Because aren't you really, like, hasn't the role of HR evolved over the last 15 to 20 years? Are you being asked to be an innovator every day? Like, you're no longer just shepherding people through their time inside of the organization. I mean, we're solving obesity in the next panel. You know, you're solving huge global issues, problems that are coming up at work all the time, and you're being asked to think on your feet and come up with creative solutions to big problems. Are you not being asked to be an innovator? Has that not changed so much over the last 15 and 20 years? And it doesn't feel so fast when it's been the span of 20 years, but if you stop and think about what things were like 20 years ago, it could be mind-blowing. Can I tell you, when I first started as a professional, I was a lawyer at a big law firm, and when I was doing my orientation, they said, you know, keyboarding skills are an option for you. So if you don't want to type any of your emails or your memos, here's a dictaphone, and you just say what you want to say in there, and your secretary will type it up for you. You're like, how old is this lady? This is 2005. Can you imagine applying for a job right now and being like, hey, just one thing, I don't type. I'll tell you what I will do. I'll send like an audio file to you or whatever is convenient, and you just have somebody like whip it up and send an email on my behalf. Can you imagine? I'm here to tell you that innovation skills are the new keyboarding skills. It is something that was an option 20 years ago. It is a requirement for the future. And I know you're like, oh my God, I don't need another thing. But you're already doing it. Let me help you do it easier, right? Because for the first 10 years of my career, I was an entrepreneur. I started 10 companies in 10 years. It's a lot of preneuring. And for the next 10 years, I helped large organizations launch new initiatives, new programs and services. I helped innovators inside big companies. And so I can tell you for a fact that there are 3 habits that all successful innovators have in common, and that's what I want to share with you here today. And one more thing about this identity as an innovator. What do you think is the opposite of being an innovator? What's a nice way to say the opposite of an innovator? What do you think? What?
Not nice, but boring.
Boring? No, I want a nice term for the opposite, because we don't think of ourselves as boring, but we do think of ourselves as comfortable. How about expert? I've thought a lot about this. I believe that the opposite of an innovator is an expert. Somebody who knows everything about what exists. Somebody that has been so successful they don't have any more questions. I interviewed the man who created the digital camera for the world. He was working at Kodak, and when he presented it at Kodak, he was like, look, a digital camera. They were like, hide this in the basement, never let anyone see it. And he said to me something really profound. He said, experts know the limits of what's currently possible. And that is great. It's good to be an expert in our work. But it's today necessary to also be an innovator, to say, I am very good at everything that's happened before, but I want to look forward at what's possible and what needs to happen and how to think differently. And these are the skills that I want to share with you today. So we're going to talk about 3 different habits that all successful innovators exhibit. They reframe, they remove, and they reimagine. And these aren't in order. This isn't like step 1, step 2, step 3. All 3 of these are happening at the same time on a daily basis. These are 3 tools in your toolbox that I want to share with you. of how to have a bigger impact at work, how to make things easier, how to make some of these really sticky problems easier to solve.